Lyra stood on the cold metal platform, trying to stop her thin legs from shaking. The bright lights hurt her large amber eyes, making it hard to see the crowd. All around her, she could hear the mix of voices, clicks, and electronic sounds from the many different aliens who had come to the auction. Her iridescent skin, normally a source of pride for her people, now made her stand out even more as a prize to be won. The metal collar around her neck felt heavy, and the chains on her wrists clinked softly when she moved. Next item for sale. Female Drillian, age approximately 15 standard cycles, called the Auctioneer, a tall gray alien with too many arms. Healthy specimen from the recently conquered agricultural world Drillia, suitable for household work, decorative purposes, or light labor. Drillians are known for their gentle nature and quick learning. Bidding starts at 500 credits. Lyra closed her eyes, trying not to remember the day the Vex warships had appeared in the sky above her family's farm. The memory came anyway. The screams, the fires, the sound of her parents telling her to run before the soldiers took them away. She had hidden in the grain storage for 2 days before hunger forced her out. The Vex patrol found her almost immediately. 500 credits from the gentleman in blue, the auctioneer called out. Do I hear 600? For the past 3 months, Lyra had been moved from ship to ship, ending up at Nexus 9, the biggest trading station in this part of space. The slave market took up an entire level of the massive station. Aliens of all kinds came here to buy and sell living beings like they were nothing more than tools or pets. 800 from the Krell merchant, 900 from the Vex officer. The Vex Empire always appreciates quality goods from their new territories. Small laughs rippled through the crowd. Lyra finally managed to focus her eyes enough to see who was bidding on her. The Vex officer stood tall in his red uniform, 4 arms crossed over his chest. His scaled face showed no emotion, but Lyra knew what happened to slaves who went to Vex military houses. None of them lasted long. 1,000 credits, called a voice from the back of the room. The crowd turned to look. Standing near the entrance was a creature Lyra had never seen before. It had flat teeth, rounded ears, and skin that didn't shine or glow at all. It stood on 2 legs like many species, but something about it seemed different. A human enters the bidding, the auctioneer said with interest. 1,000 credits from the human trader. Do I hear 1,100? The Vex officer turned his cold eyes toward the human. 1,100. 1,200, the human said quickly. Lyra watched as the two went back and forth. The human had short brown hair and wore simple clothes, dark pants and a brown jacket that had seen better days. He didn't look rich or powerful like most of the buyers here. 1,500, the Vex officer said, his voice becoming angry. 2,000, the human replied, his voice calm but firm. The room went quiet. 2,000 credits was a lot for a young slave with no special skills. The Vex officer's eyes narrowed. Human, he spat the word like it tasted bad. What would your kind want with a Drillian? Your weak species barely knows how to use proper servants. The human just shrugged. 2,000 credits. That's my offer. 2,000 credits from the human trader, the auctioneer said quickly, not wanting to lose the high bid. Going once, going twice, sold. Lyra felt her heart sink. Sold. Just like that, her life now belonged to this strange alien called a human. As guards led her off the platform toward her new owner, she wondered what kind of master he would be. At least he wasn't Vex, she thought. Nothing could be worse than that. The human was looking at her now with an expression she couldn't read. Were those eyes showing sadness? Anger? Lyra couldn't tell. She lowered her gaze to the floor as the guards pushed her forward. Your property, sir, one of the guards said, handing the control for her chains to the human. The human trader, who Lyra would soon learn was named Jack, took the control without a word. His hand briefly touched hers as he helped her step down from the last stair. It's going to be okay, he whispered, so quietly that only she could hear. Just stay quiet until we reach my ship. Lyra's head jerked up in surprise, but the human's face gave nothing away. For the first time since the invasion, she felt a tiny spark of something she had almost forgotten. Hope. Jack led Lyra through the crowded hallways of Nexus 9. He kept a firm grip on her arm, looking to all the world like any other slave owner. But his touch was gentle, nothing like the rough handling she had received from the Vex guards. "Keep your head down," he whispered when they passed a group of Vex soldiers. "We're almost to the docking bay." Lyra did as she was told. She had no reason to trust this human, but he was different from the others who had bought slaves today. He hadn't inspected her teeth or checked her muscles. He hadn't even looked at her papers properly. They passed shops selling exotic foods, weapons, and technology from 100 different worlds. The air smelled of strange spices and machine oil. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved around them, most ignoring the human and his new slave. When they reached the docking bay, Jack led her to a small ship. It wasn't fancy like the big Vex cruisers or the luxury yachts of rich merchants. This ship was built for speed and stealth, painted dark gray with the name Horizon written in simple letters on the side. "Inside, quickly," Jack said, opening the door with a scan of his hand. Once they were both inside and the door closed behind them, Jack's whole manner changed. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. With a quick press of a button, Lyra's collar made a soft click and fell open. "Sorry about that," he said, his voice warm now. "Had to keep up appearances until we were safe." Lyra stared at him in confusion as he removed her wrist chains too. "I don't understand." "You're not my slave," Jack said simply. He tossed the collar and chains into a corner. "You're not anyone's slave." "But you bought me," Lyra said, rubbing her wrists where the chains had been. Jack moved to the ship's controls and started pressing buttons. The engines hummed to life. "I bought your freedom. There's a difference." Lyra stood frozen, not knowing what to do with her hands or where to look. Freedom. The word felt strange after months of captivity. "You can sit there." Jack pointed to a seat near the control panel. "We need to leave quickly." The Vex officer didn't look happy about losing the auction. Lyra sat down carefully, watching as Jack's hands moved skillfully over the controls. The ship lifted smoothly and moved toward the exit of the docking bay. "Why would you help me?" she finally asked. "What do you want in return?" Jack glanced at her, his face serious. "Nothing. Humans don't believe in slavery. Where I come from, all people deserve to be free, no matter what they look like or where they're from. All aliens say they don't like slavery, unless it benefits them," Lyra said bitterly. "I'm not like the others you've met," Jack replied. "And humans aren't like other aliens." The ship cleared the docking bay and accelerated away from Nexus 9. Through the view screen, Lyra could see the massive space station growing smaller behind them. Stars stretched into lines as they jumped to faster than light speed. "What will happen to me now?" Lyra asked, still not trusting her sudden change in fortune. "That's up to you," Jack said. "I can take you somewhere safe, where other rescued people live. You can start a new life there. Or if you know somewhere else you want to go, I can take you there instead." Lyra thought of her destroyed home, her dead family. There was nowhere for her to go. "I have no place," she said quietly. Jack's eyes softened. "Then we'll find you one. But first, you must be hungry. The food on this ship isn't fancy, but it's better than what they fed you at the slave quarters." He stood up and moved to a small food unit built into the wall. "The ship's on autopilot now. We're heading to a safe jump point before anyone realizes what happened." As Jack prepared a simple meal, Lyra watched him carefully. He moved differently from any alien she had ever seen. There was something kind about him. The word felt strange in her mind after all she had suffered. "Why do you risk yourself to save slaves?" she asked. Jack turned to her with a small smile. "Because it's the right thing to do. And sometimes, doing the right thing is more important than being safe." For the first time in months, Lyra felt something loosen in her chest. Maybe, just maybe, she could trust this strange human after all. After they ate, Jack showed Lyra to a small room with a bed, clean clothes, and a washing unit. It was simple but clean. The first private space she had been given since her capture. "Rest if you want," he said, "or come back to the control room when you're ready. I can answer your questions then." Lyra took her first real shower in months, watching as the dirt and memories of the slave pens washed away down the drain. The clean clothes felt strange against her skin. Soft pants and a loose shirt made for comfort, not for showing off a slave. When she returned to the control room, Jack was studying a star map on the main screen. He looked up and smiled when she entered. "Feel better?" he asked. Lyra nodded. "Why did you really buy me?" she asked directly. "No one spends that much money for nothing." Jack turned his chair to face her. "I told you, humans don't believe in slavery. But there's more to it than that." He pressed a button on the control panel, and the star map changed to show a different image. "I used to be a soldier in the Earth Defense Force," he explained. "That's the human military. I saw too many worlds fall to empires like the Vex. Watched too many people lose their freedom." The screen showed pictures of different aliens. Some species Lyra recognized, others she didn't. All wore the same look of fear and hopelessness she had seen in the mirror lately. "5 years ago, I left the military and joined the Freedom Network instead," Jack continued. "We're an underground group that works to free slaves and fight against empires that use slavery." "But the Vex are so powerful," Lyra said. "Their empire controls dozens of worlds. Earth and the human colonies don't have the military power to fight the Vex directly," Jack admitted. "Not yet, anyway. So we do what we can. Free one person at a time, build safe places, gather allies." He showed her more images, hidden bases, ships like his, and groups of various aliens working together with humans. "There are more of you?" Lyra asked, amazed. "Hundreds of operatives, thousands of supporters," Jack said. "We have safe houses on 20 different worlds, places where former slaves can heal, learn, and build new lives." Lyra sat down in the co-pilot's seat, trying to understand. "But why would humans care about aliens like me? Your people weren't conquered. You could just stay safe in your own territory." Jack's face grew serious. "Humans have our own dark history with slavery. On Earth, people enslaved other humans for hundreds of years. It took terrible wars and countless brave people to end it. We learned the hard way that freedom isn't just for some people. It's for everyone, or it means nothing." He pointed to a small blue-green planet on the star map. "That's Earth. We're still new to space travel compared to species like the Vex. But we made a promise when we reached the stars. We wouldn't repeat the mistakes of our past. We would stand for freedom, even when it's dangerous." "The Vex call humans weak," Lyra said, remembering the officer's words at the auction. Jack laughed. "Physically, maybe we are. We're not the strongest, fastest, or longest-lived species out there, but we're stubborn. We don't give up easily." He reached into a drawer and pulled out a small device. When he turned it on, a message appeared in the air, a hologram of another alien, one with feathers instead of hair. "My name is Trill," the feathered alien said. "2 years ago, Jack rescued me from a mining colony. Today I help run a school for other freed people. If you're watching this, trust him. Humans kept their promise to me. They'll keep it to you too." The message ended, and Jack put the device away. "That's one of dozens of people I've helped. Some now work with us to free others." Lyra looked at Jack with new eyes. This wasn't a trick or a lie. This human really had risked everything to save her, a stranger from a species he had no connection to. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now," Jack said, checking the ship's controls, "we get you somewhere safe. But first, we need to make sure no one follows us." As if responding to his words, a warning light began flashing on the control panel. "And that," Jack said grimly, "might be harder than I thought." "What is it?" Lyra asked, watching as Jack's fingers flew over the controls. "Vex patrol ships," Jack said, his eyes fixed on the screen. 3 of them. Coming in fast. The warning sound grew louder as 3 red dots appeared on the radar display. Jack pulled up a view on the main screen, showing sleek black ships with red markings, the feared Vex military. How did they find us so quickly? Lyra felt her chest tighten with fear. "That officer at the auction," Jack said grimly. "He must have put a tracker on the station's exit records. The Vex don't like losing what they think is theirs." Jack's hands moved quickly, adjusting controls and plotting a new course. "Hold on tight. This is going to get rough." The ship lurched suddenly as Jack pushed the engines to full power. Lyra grabbed the edges of her seat as the stars outside became streaks of light. "We can't outrun Vex ships in open space," Jack explained. "But there's an asteroid field ahead. The horizon is smaller and faster in tight spaces." The ship shook as a red beam of energy passed just over them. The Vex were firing warning shots. "Attention human vessel," a cold voice came through the communication system. "Return the Drillian property immediately or face destruction." Jack didn't respond. Instead, he cut the communication and pushed the ship even faster. "There." He pointed at the view screen where thousands of dark rocks tumbled slowly through space. The Krell asteroid belt. Perfect for hiding. The horizon dove into the field of spinning rocks. Jack's hands never stopped moving, guiding the ship in a dance between the massive stones. Behind them, the Vex ships followed, their larger size making navigation more difficult. "Can you fly?" Jack asked suddenly. "What?" Lyra looked at him in shock. "The ship. Can you handle basic controls?" "I need to get to the engine room. We're leaking coolant." Lyra had never flown a spaceship before, but on her farm, she had driven harvest machines since she was small. "I can try." Jack quickly showed her the main controls. "Just keep us moving forward. Try not to hit anything big." As Jack disappeared into the back of the ship, Lyra gripped the control stick with shaking hands. The ship responded to her touch, more sensitive than she expected. A large asteroid loomed ahead. She pulled the stick to the right, and the ship banked sharply, narrowly missing the rock. Behind them, one of the Vex ships wasn't so lucky. It clipped the edge of an asteroid, sending it spinning out of control before it exploded in a flash of light. "One down," Lyra called out excitedly. The remaining 2 ships continued their pursuit, firing occasionally when they had a clear shot. Most of their energy beams hit asteroids instead of the horizon, but one shot grazed the ship's left side. Warning lights flashed across the control panel. Jack returned, his hands stained with engine oil. "Got the coolant leak fixed, but we took a hit to the left thruster." He took the controls back from Lyra. "You did great. Now let's see if we can lose these last 2. Ahead, the asteroid field grew denser. Jack guided the ship into a narrow gap between 2 massive rocks, then cut the main engines. "What are you doing?" Lyra whispered. "Shah." Jack pointed to the radar screen. The 2 Vex ships had split up, searching different paths through the asteroids. They floated silently for several minutes, power systems on minimal settings to avoid detection. One of the Vex ships passed nearby, its sensors sweeping the area. Jack held his breath. Lyra closed her eyes. The Vex ship continued past them, following a false trail Jack had created before cutting the engines. "Now," Jack said quietly, powering up the ship again. While they're separated, the horizon slipped out from between the asteroids and accelerated away from the field, taking a completely different direction than their original course. "Will that work?" Lyra asked. "It'll buy us time," Jack said. "But the ship needs repairs. We can't make it all the way to Haven like this." He adjusted their course toward a small dot on the edge of the map. "There's a trading outpost in the Mira system. Not the safest place, but they have repair facilities and don't ask too many questions." As they left the asteroid field behind, Lyra looked at Jack with new respect. You risked your life to save me. And now you're risking it again to keep me free. Jack smiled. That's what humans do for their friends. Friends. The word felt strange and wonderful after months of being treated like property. For the first time, Lyra allowed herself to believe that perhaps her life wasn't over after all. Perhaps it was just beginning. How can I help with the repairs when we land? She asked. Jack looked surprised, then pleased. You know anything about engines? I fixed farm machines all my life, Lyra said, sitting up straighter. I can learn your engines too. As the small outpost grew larger in their view screen, Lyra felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Purpose. 3 days after their narrow escape from the Vex ships, the horizon limped toward a small blue-green planet hidden in a nebula cloud. The repairs at the trading outpost had been quick but effective, thanks to Lyra's surprising skill with mechanical systems. Is that it? Lyra asked, staring at the planet growing larger in the view screen. Haven. Jack nodded. Home to the largest Freedom Network base in this sector. Population about 5,000, half humans, half former slaves from 30 different worlds. As they entered the atmosphere, Lyra pressed her face to the window. Unlike the cold metal of space stations or the burned ruins of her homeworld, this place was alive with color. Forests covered much of the land, with small clearings for buildings and farms. It's beautiful, she whispered. The nebula hides us from most scanners, Jack explained as he guided the ship toward a valley nestled between two mountains. And we keep our technology footprint small to avoid detection. The ship landed on a simple platform near a cluster of buildings. Some looked like they were built from local materials, stone and wood, while others were clearly made from salvaged spaceship parts. Welcome to Haven, Jack said as the landing ramp lowered. Lyra took a deep breath before stepping out. The air smelled clean and fresh. Like home, but different. Sweeter somehow. A small group waited for them. Humans stood alongside aliens of various species. All were dressed in simple, practical clothes, and none wore chains or collars. Jack, a tall woman with dark skin and curly hair, stepped forward. We were getting worried. Your last message was 3 days ago. Had some Vex trouble, Rita, Jack explained. This is Lyra. She's from Trilia. Rita smiled warmly at Lyra. Welcome to Haven, Lyra. I'm Rita, the settlement coordinator. Lyra had never been greeted so kindly by a stranger before. Thank you, she managed to say. Lyra's good with machines, Jack told Rita. Fixed the coolant system better than I could have. Is that so? Rita looked impressed. We could use someone with those skills. Our power generator has been acting up for weeks. Over the next few days, Lyra learned about life on Haven. Unlike the strict hierarchy of the Vex Empire, here everyone contributed what they could and received what they needed. Humans worked alongside former slaves as equals, teaching and learning from each other. At the medical center, a kind human doctor named Tom checked Lyra for injuries and illness. You're underweight and have some vitamin deficiencies, he told her, but nothing we can't fix with good food and rest. In the community dining hall, Lyra tasted foods from a dozen worlds, including human specialties like pizza and chocolate that quickly became her favorites. But the biggest surprise came when Rita showed her to the education center. All residents get education here, Rita explained, leading Lyra into a building filled with books, computers, and learning tools. You can study whatever interests you. A small group of children, some human, some alien, sat in a circle while an elderly man told them a story. In another room, teenagers learned mathematics. Adults studied everything from medicine to engineering to art. I can learn anything, Lyra asked in disbelief. Under Vex rule, slaves were taught only what they needed to serve their masters. Anything, Rita confirmed. Knowledge belongs to everyone. That evening, Lyra sat with Jack on a hillside, watching Haven's twin moons rise over the settlement. Why do humans care so much about freedom? she asked. Other species talk about it, but you actually live it. Jack thought for a moment. Humans haven't always been this way. We fought terrible wars among ourselves before we learned that respecting others' freedom is the only way to truly keep our own. He pointed to the stars. When we finally reached space and met other species, we found that many had the same problems we once did. Some, like the Vex, never learned the lesson we did, that treating others as property only leads to endless cycles of suffering and rebellion. So you decided to fight slavery everywhere, not just for humans. Exactly, Jack said. We believe all thinking beings deserve freedom and dignity, regardless of their species or origin. For the first time since leaving her homeworld, Lyra felt truly safe. Haven wasn't just a hiding place. It was a community built on respect and hope. I want to help others, she said suddenly. Like you helped me. Jack smiled. I had a feeling you might say that. But first, you need to heal and learn. Haven is good for both. As darkness fell over the settlement, lights came on in windows across the valley. Each light represented a life saved, a future restored. Lyra decided then that someday she would help bring more lights to this peaceful valley. 6 months passed quickly on Haven. Lyra grew stronger each day, both in body and mind. She spent mornings in the education center, learning about technology, galactic politics, and human history. Afternoons found her in the mechanical shop, repairing everything from farming equipment to spaceship parts. The hollow-eyed slave girl from the auction platform was gone. In her place stood a confident young Drillian with a quick mind and skillful hands. One evening, as Lyra finished repairing a power converter, Jack entered the workshop. He looked tired but excited. I've been looking for you, he said, sitting down on a workbench. I'm leaving on a new mission tomorrow. Lyra put down her tools. Where this time? A mining colony in the Taurus system, Jack explained. We received information about 20 children being used as slave labor there, small ones who can fit into narrow tunnels. Lyra felt her chest tighten. Children, younger than me. Jack nodded grimly. The youngest is only 7, according to our source. Lyra thought of her own time as a slave. The fear, the hopelessness. And she had been 15, almost grown. What would it be like for a 7-year-old child? I want to come with you, she said suddenly. Jack looked surprised. It's dangerous, Lyra. Taurus is deep in Vex territory. I know. She straightened her shoulders. But I understand what those children are going through. I speak 3 languages now. I can help. This isn't like fixing engines, Jack warned. If we're caught, we could be killed. Or worse. You risked your life for me, Lyra said quietly. Now I want to do the same for others. Jack studied her face for a long moment. Rita won't like it. She thinks you should finish your education first. I can learn more out there, doing real work, than I can in any classroom, Lyra argued. Besides, I have an idea that might help the mission. Jack raised an eyebrow. What kind of idea? Lyra pulled out a data pad and showed him the design she had been working on for weeks. It's a modification for the Horizon's stealth system. It creates a false energy signature that makes the ship look like a common cargo vessel. Vex scanners won't look twice at it. Jack's eyes widened as he studied the design. This could actually work. Where did you learn to do this? From the books in the education center and from studying the ship's systems. Lyra smiled proudly. I understand how things work, how to fix them, how to make them better. That night, Lyra and Jack presented her plan to Rita and the other mission planners. There was heated debate about bringing someone so young on such a dangerous mission. She's not just a child anymore, Jack argued. She's a member of our community who has valuable skills and knowledge. And she knows what these children are going through, added Tom, the doctor. That connection could be crucial for gaining their trust. In the end, Rita reluctantly agreed. But you followed Jack's orders exactly, she told Lyra sternly. No risks, no heroics. The next morning, Lyra boarded the Horizon with Jack and two other Freedom Network operatives, Micah, a human medic, and Dax, a former slave from a world with gravity 3 times stronger than Earth's. As the ship lifted off, Lyra felt a mix of excitement and fear. 6 months ago, she had arrived on this planet broken and hopeless. Now she was leaving as part of a team with a purpose. Nervous? Jack asked as they cleared the atmosphere. Yes, Lyra admitted, but it's a good kind of nervous. The journey to the Taurus system would take 4 days. During that time, they studied maps of the mining colony, practiced their cover stories, and prepared equipment. Lyra's stealth modifications worked perfectly in their test runs. On the final night before they reached their destination, Lyra couldn't sleep. She sat in the observation dome, watching the stars rush by. Jack found her there. "Big day tomorrow," he said, sitting next to her. "Do you think we'll save them all?" Lyra asked. "All 20 children?" Jack's face grew serious. "I hope so. But rescue work isn't always perfect. Sometimes we can only save some, but even one life saved is worth the risk." "The Vex think humans are weak," Lyra said, "because you care about others. But that's not weakness at all, is it?" "No," Jack agreed. "It's our greatest strength." As the ship hurtled toward Taurus, Lyra made a silent promise to the slave children waiting there. "Help is coming, just like it came for me." 1 year after her rescue from the auction block, Lyra stood before the Galactic Council. The Grand Chamber was filled with representatives from dozens of worlds, including several who had once been enemies. The Vex delegation sat to one side, their scaled faces showing no emotion. She took a deep breath, remembering Jack's words. "Just tell your story. The truth is more powerful than any weapon." "My name is Lyra," she began, her voice stronger than she expected. "1 year ago, I was property to be sold. Today, I stand before you as a free person and a member of the Freedom Network." The mission to rescue the children from the Taurus mining colony had been successful. Lyra's stealth modifications had allowed the Horizon to enter Vex space undetected. When they reached the mine, her ability to speak to the children in their own languages had been crucial in gaining their trust. All 20 children had been rescued that day. It was the first of many missions for Lyra. "Since my rescue," she continued, "I have helped free 143 slaves from Vex territories. Each one has a story like mine. Each one deserves freedom." In the year since joining the Freedom Network, Lyra had become known for her courage and compassion. Her technical skills had improved their ships and equipment. Her understanding of slave conditions had improved their rescue methods. But most importantly, her story had spread. Across the galaxy, people whispered about the Dralian girl and her human friends who appeared like ghosts to free slaves and then vanish again. "The Vex Empire claims that slavery is necessary for their economy," Lyra said, looking directly at the Vex delegation. "They claim that species like mine are meant to serve. But I ask you, what might those slaves accomplish if they were free? What gifts might they share with the galaxy?" She gestured to the human section, where Jack sat watching proudly. When humans came to the stars, many thought them weak because they opposed slavery. But their compassion is not weakness. It is their greatest strength. And it can be ours too. The chamber was silent as Lyra finished her testimony. Then, slowly, one representative stood to applaud. Then another. Soon the entire chamber, except for the Vex delegation, was on its feet. That night, representatives from 7 worlds signed the Haven Accords, the first formal alliance against the Vex Empire's slave trade. It wasn't a declaration of war, but it was a beginning. "You did it," Jack said as they walked through the gardens outside the council building. "You've started something important." Lyra shook her head. "We did it. I would still be a slave if not for you." Jack smiled. "That's how freedom works. One person helps another, who helps another. It grows like a living thing." 2 days later, the Horizon prepared for takeoff. But this time, their destination was not another rescue mission. "Are you sure about this?" Jack asked, as they checked the ship's systems. It could be dangerous. The Vex haven't given up control completely. Unsure, Lyra said firmly. It's time. Their destination was Drillia, Lyra's homeworld. After intense negotiations, the Vex had agreed to withdraw from several outer planets, including Drillia. It was partly a response to the growing coalition against them, partly an attempt to improve their image in the galaxy. "What will we find there?" asked Micah, who had become one of Lyra's closest friends. "Ruins, probably," Lyra admitted. "But also hope. My people are strong. Some must have survived, hiding in the mountains like we did as children." As the Horizon broke orbit and set course for Drillia, Lyra thought about the strange path her life had taken. From farm girl to slave to freedom fighter, all in less than 2 years. "I never thank you properly," she said to Jack as they watched the stars streak by, "for buying me that day." "You've thanked me 100 times over," Jack replied. "Every person you've helped free is thanks enough." Lyra looked out at the vastness of space, feeling not small but connected to something much larger than herself. "The Vex think their empire will last forever," she said quietly, "but nothing built on suffering can stand for long." Jack nodded. "Freedom always finds a way. Sometimes it just needs a little help." As the ship carried them toward Drillia and the next chapter of their journey, Lyra knew that her story was just beginning. The young slave girl had found not just freedom, but purpose, and that was a gift beyond price. The legacy of one human's kindness had changed her fate. Now together, they would change the fate of countless others.